Nigerian journalist Dr. Kemi Lawrence, Saturday, the 26th of October, 2024. Let's talk about Vice President Shettima and the plane incident that happened in the U.S. this week. Well, you can see the Instablog headline said Vice President Shettima pulls out of the Commonwealth Summit after a foreign object strikes his plane in the U.S. And the most of the story had to do with really a foreign object damage in the cockpit windscreen of the plane. And the presidential media team basically said they have sent a new delegation to represent us in Samoa. I read a tweet on X from Senator Shehu Sani, the former senator, saying that it's a diplomatic issue and they should really investigate what happened. I don't know. He can be sarcastic sometimes and satiric. He tweeted like somebody did that on purpose, blah, blah. But on the other hand, it could be a joke, as in what happened 10 years ago. Many of you were too young, so that's why I'm doing this video. Let me just tell you what happened, because journalism is a rough draft of history. And history shapes the past, the present, and the future. 10 years ago, in May of 2014, a British Airways plane left Abuja at Nnamdi Azikiwe and it was going to London. In that plane were some Nigerians, in about 3 or 4 prominent Nigerians were on that plane in business class, first class, or whatnot. But it's just a regular British Airways plane going to London. Somewhere down the line on that flight, there was a storm and lightning struck. The rain hadn't really started. I don't know how many feet they were on. They were descending actually because they were close to London. And lightning hit the plane on every side. It was crazy. British Airways tweeted the incident after they had landed. And that's how we knew. About months later, Flight Radar and all of those guys printed out what they saw from above. And this is what it looked like. Do you see that plane in the middle? That little blue thing in the middle? That's the British Airways plane in 2014. And you see how the lightning came from both sides? At that time, we just had the Chibok girls' abduction. The Borno State governor, who was Shettima at that time, was not very liked because of everything that was going on. The Minister of Education for State wrote him a letter that the girls should not go that day to take the WAEC because they had intelligence information that the terrorists were going to strike. And the governor failed to heed the warnings and let the girls go to the exam, and then they were kidnapped. They were kidnapped that night. He did not listen to them. At the end of the day, Nigeria is just recycling leaders, because I'm only telling you a story about this flight stuff, but I'm just going to put this in there. Who was the Minister of Education for State? Wike. Yeah, Nyesom Wike was the minister that wrote Shettima that the girls must not go because they had intelligence that terrorists were going to abduct him. That's when the Chibok girls thing just happened. So in May, they just abducted the Chibok girls in April, and you're going to London for what? People didn't like Shettima. So when this lightning struck, Nigerians are like, yeah, because God knows that there's evil people on that plane. The second person on the plane was Bukola Saraki. And the third person was the Delta speaker at the time, former speaker at the time. So Nigerians are really happy. It was not funny, but there were jokes around this in 2014. If you were around in 2014, you know what I was talking about. Some of you were young. Everybody was around, but some of you were young, so you remember the story. I kept some screenshots, and my former media platform was called HNN Africa. And this is a screenshot from one of the news agencies that covered it, May 24th, 2014. British Airways plane with Governor Shettima Saraki on board makes emergency landing. Passengers complete journey by bus. You can see the story written by Shegun Adelaye. I don't even know where I cut this one from, but I kept it since then. And the jokes were really around Shettima, Saraki, and Victor Oche. Now, that being said, when I heard this a couple of days ago, that another plane incident with Shettima, I'm like, wow, God just doesn't want Shettima to fly in the air. At the end of the day, it's good to know what's happened in history. That British Airways plane landed safely in Manchester. They diverted it to Manchester Airport because that's what the tweet said on the British Airways handle at the time, so the family can wait for them. And then a bus took them back to London, which I think Manchester to London is what, 2 or 3 hours? That's how they got there. But it was a crazy night. And months later, was it months or weeks later, Flight Radar had that thing. I do a lot of aviation reporting as well. But Flight Radar had this lightning thing, and God, this is phenomenal. It's nice to let them see what it looked like when they were up there. But it's 10 years, and we're getting still many aviation issues with weather and the natural phenomena, Mother Nature, turbulence, and things like that. You heard what happened to Singapore Airlines earlier this year. People died, one or two died, and just aviation issues everywhere. But we just thank God for their lives. I just wanted you guys to know that's it.